Oh, I gotta give you this.
Okay. The Army. From there, I went to Texas, Key West, Adams State College, moved to Denver with the First National Bank of Denver. I ran a computer center. I was hired by Price Waterhouse. They transferred me to Atlanta. Then they transferred me to Saudi Arabia, where I spent 3 years. Moved back, left Price Waterhouse, started my own consulting firm, moved back to Salida, and after my divorce, my son and I moved to Denver. In 1969 is when we moved to Los Alamos. My stepfather was a difficult man. He never abused me physically, but he abused me mentally most of my life. He was the reason I quit high school and joined the Army when I was 17. That was during the height of the Vietnam War. I knew I was going to Nam. And I chose Nam over staying at home. So that gives you some idea of what that means. But my number, even after 5 years, never came up for Nam. The bottom line is all my ebooks are free. It's a passion, it's not a business. I attended my first basic training at Fort Bliss, Texas, and my first AIT, Advanced Individual Training, was also at Fort Bliss, and that was on the Hawk missile system. That initial AIT was for actually a launch control technician. I was the guy that was mounting the missiles and all that good stuff downrange. I served a year in Air Defense Artillery in Key West. We'll talk about more of that later. Then I re-enlisted for 4 more years. I was in a year, they discharged me, I re-enlisted for 4, that totaled my 5. I attended a 1-year course at the Signal School at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey to learn how to repair NCR and IBM computers. Again, life hands you lemons and you make lemonade out of it. I was very much into electronics when I was in high school. I had a science teacher that used to let me come in early in the morning. We'd go to La Habana and we'd pick up used World War II electronic equipment, test military surplus stuff, test equipment, all the scopes, all that good stuff. So he really got me into electronics in high school. I ended up serving 3 years as a Spec 5, which is a sergeant equivalent. They don't even have that rank anymore, I think, with the 7th Corps in Germany. 7th Corps was a broad command. I actually never reported to anybody for 3 years. There was officers, obviously, that I respected, but I really never reported to anyone for 3 years. I'd get a phone call, a system's down in Bamberg. I had a 68 VW and I drove to Bamberg and I repaired the system, and that's what I did for 3 years. It was the best duty that a kid from Los Alamos could ever have asked for. Got out, went to Adams State on the GI Bill, served 30 years in IT, 20 years in insurance, and retired to pursue my top 2 passions, history and golf. Okay, so what is digital history? It's relatively new, but yet it's been in existence for a long time. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this slide other than it really has 2 different levels. There's people that use digital technology to help analyze history from an analytical, computative state. They can go back and trace events and outcomes and map them and stuff like that. The second one is more where I fall. Research and write and present my findings in a narrative that has an enriched content format that's both informative and entertaining. We'll talk about this more later. So what's a historian? 2 perspectives. One is the Inclusive Historian's Handbook. The second one is from Digital History. Pretty self-explanatory, presents materials in new ways to various audiences, helping to expand the reach of historical collections, to both marginalized and silenced voices. And 2 is to digitize the past while creating a technology framework for people to experience, and I want to underline that, read and follow a historical argument. So what's the end product? It's normally called an ebook. It's typically shorter in length because what you're seeing is the information the author wants you to see. And as you're interested in a topic, it will let you drill down for more information from where you are. Another way to think of an ebook is think of it as a mini website. We all know what a website looks like. There's text, there's links, you can drill down. That's really what an ebook is in its simplest form. It contains multimedia content, what you can't do in a hardback book. You can't put videos and voice recordings and stuff like that multimedia enrichment to the historical experience. You can do that in an ebook. It's also readable on any internet-connected device. I have a book. My book is in 2 formats. You can actually download it as well, but we'll get to that later. So phones, tablets, computers, wherever you're at, you can read the book. Nothing's downloaded. It all stays on the internet. It's responsive. You can actually adjust the page, the font, all that good stuff, and make it readable to you based on your blindness level. And it can be printed, but you'll lose the inherent power of a digital document. If you print it, you can't click on a link on a piece of paper. That's really what that means. This is sort of funny. It does not collect dust sitting on the shelf. It does not require killing trees for it to exist. It sits there quietly as bits and bytes and only wakes up and becomes a book when it's opened by you. However, ebooks are not static. As or if updates are made by the author, they become immediately available.
So where does your ebook sit on the Ethernet?
They sit at donaldscanga.com. We'll get to that in a second. My desire is for readers to experience the story I'm trying to tell, to understand the complete story from multiple dimensions, to know the pertinent facts. It has to be accurate, and enable them to drill down if more information is desired. I'd like them to feel the drama, visualize the backdrop, hear the voices and sounds, and watch as events occur. The reason for that is this one. Well, I'm not quite there yet. Yes.
Stand a little closer to the screen. There it is.
Okay. I'm also not a professional speaker either, but
Great.
I'm a lifelong scholar or student of history, but not a scholar. I don't pretend to be a scholar. Well, I've been educated. I have not been educated on history. I've self-studied that. So my work really falls under the classification of a popular history writer. It's intended for the general audience while trying to satisfy the expectations of history enthusiasts. I do footnote, I do reference, I do try and prove the information I'm conveying is accurate as based on the content available out there. Hopefully though, my real desire is to re-engage people, and I've met a lot of these, and I think you know a lot of those people who through traditional forms of presenting history were either bored, turned off, or completely alienated. I've talked to people that hate history. Wow. Okay, so my first book is a short book. It's less than 50 printed pages. It's called If It Flies, It Dies. It's the history of the Army Air Defense Artillery. To read it, go to donaldscanga.com, click on ebooks. There's no longer a requirement to be a membership or anything like that. Just you can open the flip book or the PDF version. You can follow me on LinkedIn or Facebook. You can read my blogs, which are short little history things, military history things. And you can send me any reviews, any comment on my work at my contact page on my website. We weren't, some of my future projects, not in this order. Talking Flags is going to be a history of the Signal Corps. That sort of, my first one's ADA. Now I'm going to do one on the Signal Corps. But I'm going to come back to that. 165 Days on Luzon. My stepfather was I began to understand why my stepfather was the way he was. He left me a book. This book is called 165 Days on Luzon. It chronicles the campaign to liberate the island of Luzon, which took 165 days, against a Japanese force that was not going to surrender. It was a bloody, ugly half a year. And I think it explains a lot, without getting emotional, about who he became as a result of that. Towards the end, he actually shared a lot of detail. So my next book, or one of my books, is going to be exploding that campaign and honoring my stepfather and the 25th Infantry Division, which I believe Mike was a part of as well, too. This one was, I'm going to really move it up. My book sort of takes us through some of the current air defense systems the Army has in the field. However, the United States air defense complex has evolved greatly. NORAD, the command structure, the weapon systems of all the branches being employed together. So I believe what I'm going to do is take not a second edition, but incorporate the first and the second into a new book. And so I hope to have that released within the next year. So we'll take us from the beginning of the Army Air Defense and go all the way through today, including non-Army units as well. Okay, so I've been asked, how do you become a digital historian? Well, the first thing is to identify a topic you might be interested in, a self-published historian, not a digital. That's a slide from now, a couple slides later. So how do you become a self-published historian? One is figure out what topic you want to write about. Research it, learn it, and decide what the story is you want to tell about that subject. Two is write your story. Proofread it, correct it, rewrite it, catalog it, get feedback on what you wrote. Repeat that process again and again and again and again. Decide after you go through step 2 when you think it's ready to share. It's readable, I'm ready to do it. Print a paper version, print it to a PDF, give the desired version to friends and family, and that's it. It's cheap, easy, simple, and you're a self-published historian. How to become a digital historian? You need to enhance your story. Take that story you wrote on that first piece, embed links, graphics, pictures, and other multimedia elements into your document, enhance and add depth to your story, and you may have to acquire additional software to do that. You need to absolutely license Adobe Acrobat. I have a Windows platform. If you have a Mac or anything else, I believe Adobe works on that as well too. So anyway, but it needs to be a full version of Adobe Acrobat. Then using the PDF, using the Word document, I use Word to write everything. Again, it's a Windows-based product. create a PDF using that Word document, protect it from being copied with both an update and a read-only password, and poof, you're it. Footnotes, if you print to a PDF, your word processor does not keep any of the embedded links. So it doesn't help, which is why you need the full version. It does take the embedded links. Okay, so how do you publish your digital history? Post it on the internet somewhere. That's the key. It has to be in an accessible, shareable location. Share the link on social media or email it to friends and family, and proof like that, you just became a self-published digital historian. That's really it. Okay. However, if you want to publish something more sophisticated than a flat PDF, i.e. pages that can flip and all that stuff that I'm about to show you, and share it with the general public, it becomes much more complicated and, more importantly, much more expensive very fast. You need a bunch more software. Many people have asked me to help educate and mentor them to become digital historians. How did I do what I did? What do they need to do it? Well, I enjoy speaking to groups like this on the concept. I don't have any bandwidth to teach or mentor individually. So to address this, I'm developing a quick start program that I'm going to offer for my website, free of charge, with tutorials, tips, techniques, and templates to get somebody kick-started if they're interested in becoming a digital historian. My current focus right now is basically continuous improvement on research and writing and marketing my free ebooks. In my career, I've launched and managed several businesses, but I don't want this passion to become a business. That's why I don't want to teach everybody and all that, because you got to pay for classes and workshops, and I'd rather write and play golf and spend time with my family. Like I just said in the last one. So that's kind of it. I think discussion is sometimes more valuable than a presentation. So feel free to ask me whatever you want, and I'll attempt to answer it the best I can. Any questions? Yes.
What's the relationship between air defense and space defense?
What's the relationship?
Yeah.
NORAD.
Is it under the same command?
No. I mean, there's, the command structure is very integrated, right? We have...
I'm not talking about the joint structure.
Yes, NORAD is still the basic, highest level unit that integrates all of our air defense.
But how about within the Army?
Within the Army?
Yeah.
Air Defense Artillery has been moved from Fort Bliss, Texas to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, basic and AIT. In research for my second book, I tried to gain access to Fort Sill. They will not let me on. Even though I'm prior military, I held a top secret crypto clearance, I can't get on. Maybe some retired officer like Mike might have access. I don't know. But all of our air defense right now is in Fort Sill, and it's primarily the three major systems that I outlined even in my first version: the THAAD, the Avenger, and the Patriot. The Patriot, by the way, Hawk has never... Israel was the only command to ever knock down an enemy aircraft with a Hawk missile. The United States never fired a Hawk missile in vain towards an enemy aircraft.
But it showed that it worked, I guess.
The Hawk missile system worked. Raytheon did a great job on the system. We would go once a year to Fort Bliss, and they call it SNAP. We left our hardware in Key West, but we flew to Texas or drove in buses, and they had a unit set up at Fort Bliss on McGregor Range, and they launched drones and stuff from another place. I forgot where it is off the top of my head, and we'd shoot them down. The system never failed. In fact, Key West unit, I was in Charlie Battery in Key West, had the highest snap score of any unit ever that attended there. I'm guessing that Fort Sill is now that. But I think they're still using McGregor Range because of the proximity for testing ADA defenses, like THAAD and Avenger. Avenger has also been deployed heavily in Ukraine right now. It's a small two-man vehicle capable of being controlled 50 feet away from it, 50 yards maybe away from it. Avenger has proven really good in the Ukraine right now. It's cheap, the missiles are cheap, the system's cheap, it's easily manned, it's easily trained. We've sent them Hawk missiles. They have not been fired against Russian aircraft. So that's about it. Like I said, Israel did fire, and we sent them Hawk, and they used that in the first Gulf War and shot down the first enemy aircraft recorded with Hawk.
But ADA, I presume, is considered more of a tactical umbrella.
It's not strategic.
Space Command is the strategic.
Well, yeah, I mean
My question was not at the unit level, my question was at the service level, where they provide more of the supplies and the troops and the equipment.
that is a
The one
low.
who command them operationally, I know that structure very well. But there is a space defense, and that's the reason why I asked the question.
There's
We should get a speaker for that. I have no idea.
well, there's actually we have, even in my book I bring this up. We have a missile defense agency. That's a government program in Washington, and it is used for acquisition of all air defense components across all branches.
Yeah, I usually work with them,
With the air defense. Okay.
with the acquisition side.
Right. The command structure, and again, as it should be, many components of our air defense, and that's going to be the problem with the second edition, is classified. So I can only research and reveal the unclassified components of our air defense structure. I believe that there are probably subordinate commands before you get to NORAD, but I don't know what they are yet. But I believe NORAD is still where it all takes place, east of Colorado Springs. Yes, sir.
I realize you don't have any access to, and it's good.
I shouldn't.
Right? So I'm just asking for a general impression. When you think about Army, Navy, the different systems, what do you sense in terms of relative capabilities of the different, they have different environments, of course, lots of different things to consider. Do you have any impressions at all?
I think if you start at the top, which is intercontinental nuclear defense, I think the Navy with the Polaris, they don't know where they are. They can't proactively defeat them. When they launch, they'll know where they are. But when they launch, they're not going to launch out of a threat. They're going to launch out of massive destruction. I think Polaris is probably, from a global war point of view, in the old Cold War days, probably our best defense from an air defense perspective. In terms of protecting the continental United States, I think the Army probably is the best network, and the web that they've created with THAAD. THAAD is a low to high altitude missile defense system. It is amazing. I would have liked to seen it firsthand. Sure.
So Admiral Byrd one of his signatures was to put anti-aircraft missiles on surface ships. The Aegis, in a sense, is the latest
Yeah, I mentioned that in my book.
endpoint of that. It's not an endpoint, but it's where we are.
Right.
And
That's more of a tactical air defense. That's more of tactical air defense.
it apparently did manage to intercept was it intermediate range missile?
Sure, and it could. Hawk could have done the same thing. We actually did intercept. We actually shot down other Hawk missiles. Hawk was a low to medium altitude system. So when I got to Key West, my first AIT was in launcher missiles. We unpackaged them and loaded them and all that good stuff. When I got to Key West, a second lieutenant said, "No, Scanga, you're going to not do that." So he had me move to fire control. And so I spent my year in Key West in radars and the BBC, the Battery Control Center. So I manned a radar scope that controlled one set of 3 launchers. and the BBC had all the different radars integrated, and then we controlled the 2 high power radars. One controlled one firing section, the second one controlled another firing section, and we had 3 missile launchers with 3 missiles each. So I sat at the right-hand console, I controlled 9 missiles. And when I got word, we used to lock on MiGs 3 times a week. MiGs would come in and try and test our penetration system, and we were actually pretty good. It's back when I could hear and see pretty well. And we were using Doppler at the time. So I mean, they would try and fly evasive maneuvers. They'd fly at wave level, and I could lock on 50 feet above the sea. I mean, and I could maintain a lock to the point where I got a fire signal saying you can launch. I had no problems with the Hawk system. I thought it was probably, for the cost of that system, probably the best one we've ever fielded. They moved from a towed system to a self-propelled system. That was even more effective, tracked, self-propelled. The Avenger is amazing to me. 2-man controlled. It is an awesome little system. Certainly better than Hawk because of its mobility. And Ukraine has proven that it works really well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So if the Hawk is being sent to Ukraine, why aren't they not using it?
They were all in excess inventory. The Army keeps everything for how many thousands of years? I mean, we have a lot of allies that still have the Hawk system. We don't. We don't have as an operational unit under the Army. But like I said, many of our allies still use the Raytheon system. It's fine. We have more missiles in storage than we probably had during the Cold War, because we're not firing them for training purposes primarily. But so yeah, I mean, some of our allies, like I said, Israel was one of the first to get it. I think Greece, I think a lot of European countries had Hawk. When I was stationed in Schweinfurt, the 32nd ADA probably had 20 batteries located around Germany. I got onto 2 of them because I knew a guy from the mess hall that said, "Yeah, I'll take you out there and show you." It was a towed system, those poor guys were in the field, 10 months out of the year. I realized how great of a duty assignment I had in Key West after watching them. And my MOS, I never went to the field once in 3 years in Germany. I don't know what blessings was bestowed on me, but I had a great MOS, and I'm glad I wasn't in Hawk and in Germany. Any other questions? What are you laughing at? Huh?
Would it be possible to call up your book?
Yeah, I can give you, I think, a brief glimpse of that. How do I
All
go?
we need is your email, whatever that website is. Or?
Yeah, donaldscanger.com.
Oh, okay. Well, here.
Here,
let me-
can I? Okay, it's right there. Can I click on that or?
well, let me see if I can click
No.
it from here.
Yeah, I think we talked about that this morning.
Yeah.
I think we have it open. If you minimize that screen, I think there it is. Okay, there it is. Now, here I can control it from here. It's easier if I do it than tell you what. Yeah.
I wouldn't count on
Yes. Okay, go to ebooks.
it. Okay.
Top.
So that's your website.
That's my
It's
website,
all-
donaldscanger.com.
Okay.
Go to ebooks.
Okay.
Okay, so scroll down.
Okay.
Boy, I got it. Okay. Open the flipbook version. So there's two before you do that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that's a flipbook version that you're about to see, and this is a PDF version. You can print the PDF version. You can't print the flipbook version. So if you're the kind of guy that wants to print it and read it at your own leisure, but when you print it, obviously none of the links are going to be live. But to do that, you hit print PDF version, that button, and then you enter a password called README. Okay,
Oh, yeah, very
that's the way that it's, yeah, and you can go ahead and open that if you want to, hit
Well,
the printable
One
PDF.
quick question.
Yes,
What
sir.
is the software or the whole program that you use to create this thing?
Okay,
Oh, my knees.
How old are you?
Yeah, getting up there.
I can control that for you.
No, that's all right.
Okay. Remember, I have an IT background. Okay, there is multiple platforms necessary to do what I do. Okay, I'll simplify it though. I can only talk Word. I can't talk, Mac or Apple or I use an iPhone. I use an iPad, but I don't know Apple's computers. I use Word. I use Microsoft products. I use Word. And the way I formatted a Word page was I took my library, I went through and I measured X amount of books, and I said, okay, the average book is this size, an average page is this size, a frontispiece is this. So I actually took measurements, and then I went into Word, and I created a document that had blank pages and then numbered pages. And I formatted that with the right margins that matched the common books that I read. And that's how I formatted the Word document. And then I just typed. And with Word, you can add a picture, and it changes the text. So it's easy to manage and write. So Word's the primary tool I use to write. I use OneNote primarily, and did I bring them?
So we're basically,
I actually printed out a quick start sheet. I will get Mike a PDF. In fact, I might have emailed it to you. That sort of shows the stuff I do and which products I use to do it with. So Word is my primary writing tool. I use OneNote as an interface between my computer and my mobile devices. So I can, if I think of something, I can write it in OneNote, and it's there on my computer when I go to do work. This website is Wix, W-I-X. So the formatting for the website is Wix. My publisher is Flowpaper. Flowpaper is fairly easy to do. I can do it from my PC at any time I want to. You take a PDF document that you've created, okay, from the Word document. So you do Word, and then you write your book in Word, and then you do Adobe Acrobat full version that I brought up before, and you say create a PDF from a Word document, and it does that for you. You take that PDF and you go to Flow Paper, and you upload it, and you flip the type of design template you want the book to look like.
You're talking about stuff that's way above us.
Okay, go to the flip book. Let's start at the,
Yeah, just,
well, no, go to the PDF first. This is what you get when you create a flat PDF. And you have a very slow internet here, so give it a while.
oh yeah, read me.
Read me. Ooh, yeah, good memory. Okay, so this is how the PDF that you use to send to Flow Paper looks before you send it up. And you scroll down to read this thing, just like any other PDF. Okay, so here's the pages of the book. Okay, so that's, but it's a big font. You can read it from a computer and mobile device, whatever. Okay, you can print this, and that's the primary reason why I did this. Now, from the computer, the links are hot. So if you saw on a previous page there was a link, you could actually go to the website. Don't do that because the speed of the internet's really slow. Now, why don't you go back to ebooks here? This one right here.
Where?
This tab, this tab
The
right
top
here.
one. Oh, yeah.
Click on that.
No.
Okay, now open the flipbook version. Okay, so this is a flipbook version. And if you were on a mobile device, you could actually use your fingers to turn the pages. Okay, but you can use that to turn the pages. And that's how a flipbook, that's how my ebooks look. Okay, and the links are hot. I even introduced military speak for those people that don't speak military. The table of contents are hot links. You can actually go to a section without having to flip 25 pages. And this is the life of and you can shrink the screen. Okay, so you can control the font size. That's where our barracks were located on the Naval Air Station. Best food I've ever had in the military in 5 years was Navy.
All right.
They would actually send out, when we man the site 24 hours a day for cycles, right? So when we were manning the TAC site, they would bring out hot food from the naval station. Even the stuff that comes in the cans is better than any Army food I've ever had. And the barracks were like second-class hotels. I mean, the barracks we actually had the big mattresses, the Air Force mattresses, and on the TAC site we had those old Army World War II mattresses. And so anyway, I love the Navy. They were really good to us. So that's kind of my book. I mean, again, it's formatted, it looks like a book, it talks like a book, but it's more powerful than a book.
So this is basically a Word file we're looking at.
That's a Word file that was, yeah, that's a Word file.
Huh.
I'm not bad at what I do. I'm not a great speaker. I'm a better writer, and I'm a really lousy golfer, but I'm trying to break 90. I've never broke 90. So. And so we talked about the Avenger, the THAAD. Here's the Missile Defense Agency. We talked about it a little bit earlier. The Avenger system gives you a high-level overview of that. Go back one.
Okay. Oh, look at that. Eisenhower.
Oh, the last section is called the Colorado Connection. It's probably a third of the book. And it kind of explains how Colorado became so eminent in the air defense infrastructure. You know, the Air Force Academy, NORAD, all that stuff. And we, the Veterans Museum, have a close affinity to Ike and Mamie. And they are the reason. So I actually have a love story in the last section about Ike and Mamie. And it explains how the Air Force Academy actually became an Air Force Academy, and it actually, the first classes were held at the Air Force Base in Lowry. And Eisenhower Tunnel and Cheyenne Mountain Complex. It's basically an alternate command site for NORAD right now.
And again, like here, you have a short, you could.
You can videos as well. I actually have a live video of a Hawk missile fire earlier on Marines, but I don't care. Author's short. This was I presided over the wedding of a niece. It was held at Cherry Hills Country Club. Had never been there, and the reception dinner was held in the Eisenhower room. And they had this big display case with a lot of his golf paraphernalia. So that night I was there for a wedding. I was surrounded by golf and I was surrounded by history. I was in seventh heaven. And
Notice that?
well, my ebooks are free. My ebooks are free. Scroll down. No, go back up one. Now, can you go to the bottom of the page?
Yeah, well, let me try.
Yeah. So what I ask all my readers is that if you appreciate my work and you wish to express your gratitude since it's free, please consider a generous donation to Veterans Museum.
Yes.
And there's a link right there that will take them to their website.
We have that book in our library, right?
No. I could print one, but again, the printed thing loses the multiple depth of the book. I mean, really, it does. I mean, that's why I chose to be a digital historian.
I'm one of those dinosaurs that
I will get you a PDF. Can you print a PDF if I send you one?
Yes.
Or you can go to my website and go to that printable PDF and hit it and print it. I try and make it easy for everybody. You just lose the links is all.
But it's 45 pages.
Yeah, it's not a big book. I mean, and that's remember what I said. The beauty of ebooks is you can,
Well, yeah.
I don't know, did I say anything about you?
Who?
No, I didn't.
No. It's all right.
You guys know, you know Dave Barrett, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's the reason I discovered VMB. He's been a friend of mine for 20 years. We were in IT together way back in the day.
David Barrett was one of our prior speakers and has written a book called 140 Days to Hiroshima.
Yes.
And was kind of all the critical decisions that were done both by the Allies and the Japanese, which finally led to the decision that we better drop those bombs if we're going to end this war.
And his stories to me about what it takes to publish was one of the primary reasons why I elected to go the digital route, because that is a mess. I mean, I don't want to touch it. The other guy, I think you probably know, who probably mentored me a little bit on writing. But anyway, so that's the book, and it's free. You can download it in a PDF if you want to. You can read it online just like this. You can enlarge the font. Some of my future projects, like I talked about before, the history of the Signal Corps.
Why don't you do the core of it?
Here's an interesting thing. For those that don't know, go ahead and leave it right here for a second. Tell me if I'm boring you, by the way. I didn't know this until I researched it, but the Signal Corps was actually established an aeronautical division back in 1907 to take, and this is quote, to take charge of all matters pertaining to military ballooning, air machines, and all kindred subject. I love the way they wrote back then. The Signal Corps began testing the first airplane at Fort Myer, Virginia, and on September 9th, Thomas Singefield, flying with Orville Wright, was killed when the plane crashed. he became the first military aviation casualty go down. After more testing with an improved flyer, it was formally accepted into the Army as airplane number 1 on August 2nd, 1909. The first provisional then was redesignated the first Arrow and began flying activities a few days later. Assigned the role in a punitive expedition in the Mexican border. In 1916, the squadron became the first air combat unit of the United States Army. I didn't know that. I love history, guys. So anyway, so the Signal Corps is like tech support for the Army. If those people that aren't Army vets don't know that. It was started by a medical officer during the Civil War to establish some kind of command and control process between the command and the operational units of the Army. And he was a medical officer that developed this system of using flags to communicate in combat. It worked really well, except when there was a bunch of smoke in the air from bombs, but that's how they communicated. And he was the first signal officer of the United States Army. He became the first signal officer. So the Signal Corps has a big history, and I'm an IT guy, so that's why it's going to be my second major book. Okay. Anything? So that's what I do. Yeah.
Just an observation for the book you're working on now is that after the Civil War, the Army still had a real interest in signaling over long distances. In the West, they used
Telegraph.
Mirrors.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I think I read.
Mirrors.
Heliographs, I think they call it.
Heliographs is what I was
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
which is a whole interesting development. And maybe if you did some research, because Morse code would have been developed by that time, the question would be, and I don't have an answer.
How did they use that
Did they choose
code?
Morse code as ready-made for them to do that, or not? How long did they use this technique? The West would have been peculiarly suitable, given a lot of weather that was very clean, clear, and line of sight, and very quick.
Yeah.
But of course, once you got telegraphs,
Right.
they
Well, I
were.
thought the Union forces later in the war did extensive laying of, whatever we want to call it.
Railroads and
wiring.
telegraph.
Right, during the railroad.
There's
war, they
pictures
had to
of
have
all
it.
kinds of wires on the ground going up the front lines.
Well, anyway,
My
well,
question,
yes.
You should
sir.
spend some time down at Fort Huachuca.
Oh,
No, you
Arizona.
shouldn't.
Oh, why?
Signal Corps operated out of Fort Huachuca.
Oh, okay, no, yeah,
There's a wonderful set of museums down there.
yeah. I managed to avoid Fort Huachuca a couple times in my life.
It's not a bad move.
No, it's not?
It's not.
Okay.
But that's actually a great point, because Fort Huachuca, of course, is Army intelligence training.
Right,
So
now.
why is there a connection between those two? That's something to explore.
Sure.
There you go.
well, anyway-
Absolutely,
Well,
actually.
anyway, Don, thank you again for being our speaker
Oh, thank
today.
you for everything.
And
Oh,
go.
nice.
we'll
Thank
have
you.
to get you back to really tell us now the history of the Army Air Defense. I was
You-
expecting more of that. but
Well,
I'll
the
read
way you
book.
wrote the summary, I thought you wanted me to talk more about being a. Yeah, I when I get the second book written, I'll come back and do a big presentation on both.
Yeah.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Talk to Don and